Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Nikki Brown, and I'm the owner of Create a Vision Coaching, along with my husband Michael, who's also here with us. And I'm also an instructor for the laser focused coaching program, Marion's program. And so I'm just thrilled to be here today and have Marian Franklin, the one and only Marian Franklin, join us today. So thank all of you for being here. Thank you for coming and making time out of your day just to come and hang out with us and to get to be with Marian and pick her brain, ask her questions, and just hear her share her wisdom. And Marian, thank you so much for making time to be here with us today. Sure do appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki. And yeah, and just so everybody knows, the only sacrifice is that it's 11:30 in the morning here. And for me, that's a sacrifice. So good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, or good evening for Gabby. So I'm always thrilled to do these things because quite honestly, I love getting questions, and the harder the question, the more I love it. And so I could, clearly talk about laser focus coaching from here to eternity, but you've read the book. Some of you really know me. Some of you have actually heard my coaching. And so what I would really like to do is open it up to you for your questions. So they could be, places where you've gotten stuck. They could be things you read in the book that you're just not so clear on. They could be just a general coaching question. I mean, it doesn't matter what the question is, as long as it's related somehow to coaching. I'm happy to answer it and share whatever I can. So here's an opportunity to literally pick my brain. So I hope you can take advantage, and I'd really like to hear from everybody at some point. So who's going to get us started? Unless you want me to lecture, I'm happy to do that.
This is Janice, and I have a quick, very simple question.
Okay.
I noticed your Facebook is private. I took laser coaching years ago before we had all this technology, and I'm wondering, how do I get on your Facebook?
I think all you do is you go onto that page and ask to join.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the Heart of Laser Focused Coaching is the group, Janice. So if you look up Heart of Laser Focused Coaching, you can join that. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And just so you know, Janice, the course is nothing like when you took it. It's like a whole new version. So yeah, just saying, it's like a whole new thing.
This is so cool to have someone on the line with us that evidently was there a long time ago. That's really
how
cool.
long was it, Janice? I'm in her fanny pack. What can I tell you, Janice?
Yeah, we're not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. How long ago was it?
My gosh, I want to say Life's Little Lessons. Remember that? Are those in the book? I'm not answering your question, but I'm trying to think back to when it was, because I remember, oh my gosh, I want to say at least 10 years. I want to say at least 10 years.
At least
10.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Maybe more. We've had more technology in the last 10 years. Probably 12 years. Probably 12 at least.
Okay, I'm going to quickly.
Janice McKinney.
I know. McKinney. Okay. I need a date. Gosh, doesn't give me a date. Registration. Well, I can see what class. 2013.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
It was almost 10 years ago. Yeah. Okay. There we have it.
Yeah. And how far we've come.
And I bought your book.
Oh, good. Thank you. So questions. Come on, guys. Here's an opportunity. Hi, Rhonda and Val.
I have a question.
Rhonda. Hi, Rhonda.
Yeah. Is that
This
Marnie?
is Marnie. Yeah, it's Marnie. Hi.
Hi. It's just
I feel like,
I'm looking at you, and normally it's only your voice. So
I know it's different.
I'm trying to take it in. Go ahead, Marnie.
Okay. The leverage point is such a critical concept, and I feel like I'm still learning it. I kind of know it when I spot it, because it seems as though the client has kind of backed themselves into a corner, like between a rock and a hard place, where this option and that option both don't work. And then when that happens, I'm normally thinking like, okay, how do I help them see that? So it leads into that question about, what is this costing you, or what's the payoff for staying where you are? And I just wondered, Marian, if you can talk a bit more about, how to spot the leverage point and how to really address it in an effective way.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say the easiest way to spot it is when you hear the client rather confident about a statement they're making that isn't necessarily true.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I eat this cake, I'll be fat. If I leave this job, I'll never find one I like again. It's usually an if then. That's the typical, that we can hear easily.
Yeah.
Or, when I do this, this will happen. Or, in other words, it's this idea, which, we know is belief, but it's this idea that something is this way. And we realize as the outside person, like, no, not necessarily like that. So as soon as we realize it, we have to find a way to point it out. And typically, I'm just trying to think, because I have a really good example that I'm going to be using for a presentation coming up. And I'm just trying to think which one of my, okay. I know which one it was. Okay. So somebody had an old message driving them, right? And the message was that I need to be good and not speak up, because if you speak up, you get ridiculed, or whatever the thought was. And what I did was I basically said, okay, so now I think I probably said I'm confused or puzzled, my typical. And I said, what I'm hearing is this idea that if someone speaks up, they're going, I'm going to make it up now, they're going to be punished. And if they don't speak up, then they feel like they're being used and taken advantage of. So knowing that, what has you so invested in staying quiet, knowing that there are negatives or something like, I'm kind of, doing it off the cuff now, but basically what you're trying to find out, what you're trying to show them is, that what you believe, so to speak, is not really working. It's in your way from moving forward. So what would have you so invested in that? Or what, or sometimes you could even say, oh, I know, I did one where I said, so, if you do it this way, you get this result. And yet, if you tried it differently, there's this idea that it's not going to work. But what if it does work? What would that mean? And basically trying to say to them, we don't know what's going to happen, but it's worth the chance, versus going with what we know doesn't work. So I don't know. Does that help?
Yeah, I love that. That's a really good reminder of the way to spot it, like the if then, or, if I do this, then that will happen.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're doing is we're kind of poking a little hole in their logic, which is a little bit flawed because it's not necessarily true.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think your examples reminded me of multiple clients who have had similar things. So that's really helpful. Thank you.
Good. Good.
Thanks, Marnie.
Rhonda,
Yes.
we'd love to see you. Val, we'd love to see you.
So, Marianne, big fan of your book and Better Up coaches too. I'm so sorry. This is a really bad decision I made today because I saw the Facebook post, but at the same time I already arranged my schedule today. I knew I would be driving while you're on the call, but I so want to be here. So I'm sorry that I'm driving, but I am using the hand-free. I have a device that holding the phone in the moment, so no safety issue here. I apologize that I was late, and I just want to be here. But if you think it's not a good situation, I will leave the call.
No, of course not. You can stay, and if you have a question, by all means, so do whatever you need to do.
Yes.
Just be safe. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everybody's tolerance on me. I do have a question. I felt like for the established agreement part, I still haven't found a fine balance between, because you said at the very beginning and the first few questions you asked is really crucial because that really set the tone and you wanted to be coaching the person rather than on the issue.
Mhm.
So I find the balance for me is I'm trying to go in, not trying to set up an agreement right away. I want to, ask more questions at the beginning. But sometimes I felt like next thing you know, I'm too far into the session and I haven't really narrowed down on a focus. So
Okay.
I'm wondering, is there any good method to sort of find that balance that I'm coaching the person, but at the same time, would it be a good way to really find the anchor for the session?
Okay, so I have had that situation, what you're describing, many times. And so I always say there's ICF coaching and then there's reality. And sometimes in reality, you don't really need a clear agreement because the client has been very clear on what they're looking for. And even though you've been exploring and asking questions, it's still pretty obvious what direction you're going. That said, it's not a great habit to be in, to skip it. And so what I say is, when you're asking your questions in the beginning and you're starting to get some traction, before you really get invested in that traction, like, oh, this looks like, oh, I'm beginning to see what's in this person's way here, or whatever, then you can say, well, we've been talking about, this decision that needs to get made. So what is it specifically that's going to help you as we move forward in our conversation? So, I never ask about the outcome because that to me is a waste of a question. But so what would you need at this point, or what would be helpful now for our conversation? So before you really, because, as we're listening and we're starting to gather the information, we do get more invested, right, in the story and more invested in what's happening. And we start to see things or think things. So I would say before you get so invested, kind of do I'll call it in quotes, a recap, and ask them what they would like for this session, what would be really helpful. And then ask them one of the two questions, like, well, what makes that important at this time? Or what do you think would help you to figure this out? Or, one of those types of questions. And then you can move on. And then you've at least, it's not MCC per se for them, but at least you touched on the agreement piece.
Oh, I really appreciate how you said it, that, you know, you got the ICF stuff and also the reality. I think that really make me feel more relieved, because I was on the way of preparing for my MCC, and then I came across your book and the recording. I just, yeah, it just makes so much sense to me. But then, of course, I also have to need to look at the ICF criteria stuff. I think that's why I felt a little bit stuck.
Yeah, I get
Yeah.
that. And if it's you're going for MCC, you said?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm gonna put in right away, but at least this is what I'm doing right now, because I felt like the learning has to go first. I want to know what's the next level's learning looks like.
Okay. So
It kind of like, yes, it's about the certification, but really in the end, it is about the learning. How can I, you know, bring up my skills to the next level? So yeah.
okay, so for MCC, you absolutely have to have a clear agreement. And you have to ask them things like, by the end of our conversation, what would that look like? You have to include a lot more of those types of questions, whether you like it or not.
Okay, I appreciate your honesty. Yes, what does the success look like today? How do you know get there? And how do you feel when you get there?
Right, but try not to make it so formulaic, and use different words. Be a little more creative. So, you know, by the end of our time together, what might that look like? Or what would help you to know we've actually achieved that? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, make it more
Yes.
don't
Yeah.
use their words like that, because it's just so gaggy, okay?
Yes, you're right. I get that, especially for MCC. They're looking at how can you customize the question using the client's language.
Exactly.
Thanks so much. Yeah, this is so helpful. I feel
Good.
like I've been stuck for the last month or so. I hope it's okay if I can ask another question.
Sure.
Yeah.
It helps everybody, doesn't it? The questions? Okay.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And I had a follow-up to her
Yeah.
question. So before we leave that, can I maybe ask that question?
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
I'll wait. Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Of course. Who's speaking?
So it's Lisa. Hi.
Oh, Lisa.
So if you are, this was a question that I had, prior till like, so you ask a question like, what makes this important to you, or what makes it important to figure it out now, like in going deeper with the agenda. And so if you are leading by following, if you will, then how do you ever get to like the metrics questions about like, by the end of our conversation, what would that look like? Or what will help you know that, when we've achieved that? So then, like, how do you ever break away? Like, if you're leading by following and already, committed to an agenda question.
You pick up on what they've said. So they just gave you a response, right? And you pick up on you use a piece of that. So so I can hear this has been going on for a really long time. So what's bringing it up at this point? And or what would help you now in our conversation to figure this out more, whatever. So in other words, pick up on something to thread it, if that makes sense. Because you want to be able to thread something. The lead by following is important, but kind of like what we were talking about is you can't, according, in the ICF style, you can't lead by following and then have these questions are just like part of a formula, so to speak. They're very like, you have to do this, you have to do that. So make the words, as I said, more natural, but weave it in with pieces of things you've already heard. So it doesn't sound like you're just asking the question because it's time to ask the question. Does that help, Lisa?
That is certainly masterful for sure. Whenever you can do that.
Yeah, but you can, because you, as I say, you just pick up on what they've said. And even though you would want to go to the next question, instead of going to the next question, you ask them, so based on that, what do we need to do here in our conversation? That's all.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right. Tina, I'll be right with you. Val had one more question, so hold on.
Oh, thanks so much. Yes, the questions, I had a coaching session today, and there's a lot of emotions and frustration going on. And we had worked previously in a session to explore deep in that. And I felt like since I read your book and all the learnings I've been applying, I find it's really powerful and challenging their patterns and beliefs. And, you know, working with the emotions and the deeper stuff is really, really helpful. So today we kind of, you know, similar approach, but the client came up with a question. He was worried that, you know, he said he didn't want to bring it up, that's as if he was ranting about, you know, his stuff, and we're going down more therapy or counseling, he said counseling route. So I can feel that he has some worries. And also I think I dealt with it very well, because I said, okay, so would it be helpful if we just pause here and check in on our understanding of coaching and what's in and what is out? So we took a few minutes to explore that. But his question prompted me with a question that I've been having, you know, since the recent learning is, if we're coaching more around the person and the beliefs and the patterns, what really is the difference between, you know, what we're doing in the coaching context versus counseling? I know this is
Well, because counseling,
you know, very basic question,
right?
but just his reaction kind of made me think of the question in my head again.
Well, I mean, if you're counseling, you're in a way you're playing the expert role, and you're giving information, you're giving advice, you're making suggestions, which are things we don't do.
Sorry.
All right, we're losing your audio,
Yeah.
Val.
Yeah, you're breaking up, Val.
Yeah,
Marianne,
so
you
we'll
just
come
wanna go
back
ahead.
to you. We'll come back to you. Tina has been waiting patiently, so let's go to Tina while you're in frozen mode.
Because we're doing explorative.
She's trying to speak, I think.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Val, you're totally frozen and we can't hear you. So if you could just hold off, we're going to move on and I'll come back to you.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Tina, go ahead.
Hi, it's really nice to meet you. I was actually in Carol Keith's book club group, but I couldn't come to that live because I was on an airplane. So I was absolutely ecstatic when Nikki invited me to this. So
absolutely no excuse.
It's just logistically difficult. So I'm very glad to be here. Thank you, Nikki, for extending the invite. I was going to follow on a little bit on what Val and Lisa were saying about establishing the agreement. I'm an ADHD coach and I have ADHD clients, and with one client, he's been really, really clear that he just wants to sort of verbally process what is going on in his life, and that is what he wants from the sessions. And the first time I was like, yeah, okay, really clear. So, but I'm still wanting to, well, I suppose it doesn't matter what I want, but I think it'd be great in those situations to create a little bit more intention for him and for me.
Sure.
And what you would do in that situation. Any advice?
Okay. So, you know how I have the whole chapter, don't believe the client?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So he wants to verbally process, which makes you rent a friend.
Yeah.
That's all you are then, rent a friend, right? He pays you to just listen while he does diarrhea of the mouth. That's not what we're here for. So your job is to let him process, but to cut him off when you hear something of interest or importance, or you wondering, or something's triggered in your mind from listening. And then you have to use his name, you know, so Steve, let me just stop you for a moment here, because I just heard XYZ and I'm wondering, and you ask a question. And then he answers your question and he starts babbling again, and you just do it again. Okay, so Steve, wait, hold on 1 second here, because there's something that's been repeated a few times that I've heard, you know, and you ask a question. So it's up to you to, in quotes, facilitate the conversation, right? You're the coach. You're the one who has to keep it on track and keep it on time and all that. So he may want to babble the whole time, but then he might as well go to a therapist.
Yeah.
Right. The old-fashioned kind of therapist who just sits there and goes, But that's not what you're there for. So it's up to you to create the dialogue.
So this is where the themes can be really useful for me when listening to the conversation, and really kind of established on a higher level what the links are and what's really going on.
The patterns and
okay.
Definitely.
Great.
Yeah.
I
Good.
should be doing that. Thank you.
Good. All right, who else? Oh, Marnie.
Cheryl has a question.
Oh, wait, Cheryl has a question. Hold on. Yeah, Cheryl.
Okay, so this has to do with the shift and what comes after. And I'm going to use an example to just illustrate what my problem is. Okay, so let's say that the client is having trouble getting started, and then we figure out that what is getting in the way is their perfectionism. And so they're realizing that that is what's getting in the way. And so I'm helping them pave the path into the shift or into what they're going to do about it. And so I'm asking them what they've learned about themselves, and they're realizing that it's, you know, their perfectionism, and so then I'm asking them, what do they see themselves doing using these new insights about themselves? And then they say, well, I don't know, what do you see? What do you think I should do? And this happens, I would say, quite a lot with the kinds of clients I work with. I also work with people with ADHD. And I just, like, my heart sings because I'm like, so I'm wondering if you have any insights on how to handle those situations.
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is, what's the difference what we would do? Who cares what we would do? You know, our life and their life is not the same, right? Our history and their history is not the same. Our experiences aren't the same. Our values aren't the same. Our ideals aren't the same. So what difference does it make what I would do? So I would say to really make it hard for them. So even if I told you what I would do, what difference would that make for you? That's a really tough question, but it's a great one. So what, yeah, so
Okay.
if I told you what I would do, what difference would that make for you? And then what comes to mind, which I'm putting in my my keynote speech that I'm giving, is the wise person question. You know, well, what do you think a wise person would do? And in that speech, I'm actually describing why the question is so profound and how I've realized how profound it really is. So even though it just seems like, yeah, it's just another question to ask, it's not. It's an amazing question. And you yourselves can use that when you're stuck with something. You're standing there trying to figure something out and you say, well, wait a second. What would a wise person do? It's unbelievable what comes up. You really, really can take yourself out of some pretty yucky situations where you've been struggling because you know the answer. It just doesn't come because you're so busy with the head stuff and you're so busy with the mind chatter and you're so busy with anything but taking your ego out and raising above. So the really cool thing is to ask that question. But I would first ask them, so even if I told you what I would do, and let's say I would jump off the bridge, what difference, you know, you have to come up with some exaggerated thing, like what based on what they're saying, you know. So like, I don't know, give me an example of what he wanted to hear from you.
Well, I think I honestly have no idea, but I think it's because they're thinking, well, you know about ADHD, so what would be the best or the right thing, or, you know, because also they're thinking, well, first of all, the perfectionism is coming back into play, but also they're thinking this is about my ADHD, which it really isn't. Or it could be. I have so many things that are coming up in my mind, and I'm not. I'm just having trouble figuring out what could be the first thing that would be, you know, that I could do, and that might be the ADHD, but they haven't said that yet. So, you know, the thing that I think might come to, yeah.
But that's where the wise
thinking that is the ADHD.
But that's where the wise person question would be brilliant, you know. Well, what do you think a wise person would choose to do first?
Yeah.
Or what do you think a person without ADHD would want to do now? Anything that takes them out of who they think they are. Does that help, Cheryl?
Got it. Yeah, it really does. Yeah,
okay,
thank you.
Good. Okay, Marnie?
Okay, great. My question is about the MCC level. So I've been studying and recently received my PCC. So I'm a beginner PCC, but a coach friend of mine kind of planted the seed of an idea in my mind, which was that maybe one day I also would go for the MCC level. So my question for you, Marianne, is what do you think will help me to get there? Like, how can I best use the experiences I'm having now as a coach to get there? And if you want to speak on like, what are the real distinctions between the PCC level and the MCC level, that would help me sort of have a vision for where I could possibly go.
Okay. All right. So Julio, I'll get to you. So the main difference is the depth. The conversation has to go really deep. And every question without fail has to be about the person, not about the story in any way. And there has to be a flow, and it has to sound natural. But more importantly, you have to pick up on more nuances. You have to pick up on So for example, somebody was smiling, right? And normally we say, oh, I noticed now you're smiling. What's that about, right? You have to ask another question related to that. So I can see that it was helping you. You're happy now, you figured this out. So what will that mean for you now that you're moving forward? You see, you have to expound on anything you pick up. That's what they're looking for.
Yes.
So if you notice any kind of emotion or expression or anything like that, not just what's that about, but then to go on. And then the other thing that they're very big on is, rather than making a lot of quote unquote statements followed by what do you think, or observations, by what do you think, they're very big on getting them to make their own observations. So instead of, it seems as though, there's some anger going on here. What do you think? Instead of that, they really prefer, it sounds like there's some emotion bubbling up. What do you think that might be? They prefer that for MCC. So there's some of the nuance differences. Now, and the other thing is, because they want this, I'm going to call it more depth, they also are fine if the conversation's like 40 or 45 minutes versus trying to keep it to 30 for PCC or ACC.
Good.
So it can be a little
thoughts
longer.
about
And I would say not how what?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to follow up on that second question I asked. Like, what's going to help me to get there? Like, I don't want to put pressure on myself to do it, but maybe in a couple of years. So
in a couple of years, yeah. So what you want to do is you want to go back and listen to your recordings, record more conversations that you're having, and go back and listen to the things you could have expounded on, the things that you missed, the things that you're sorry you asked that question instead of that question. That's how you learn. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. Plus working with a mentor coach is really helpful as well.
Oh, without question, but you have to have a really good one who's really well versed in understanding MCC and what they're looking for. So you want someone who's assessing for ICF MCC. Yeah. And for those who don't know me well, I'm not doing any of that anymore at all. Okay, moving on. Julio.
All right, here I am. So last week, I had an appointment on Thursday. I set up an appointment on Thursday with my first potential paying client. And apparently I had COVID last week, or I don't know, it's recovering for it. And I showed up. I was there, sick as a dog. I'm like, I'm here. And he didn't show up. Nothing. And this is in the ADHD thing, and I know all about ADHDers. I'm a transformed ADHDer. So I'm thinking this guy, he's not serious. He just doesn't want to do it. It's not serious. So I ran it by a couple of my colleagues, and they're like, well, you're so advanced and you've been studying personal development and all that. I'm like, I don't know that it matters, because if I really want something, I'm going to get it, developed or not. So I don't think I should make an effort and say, hey, what's up? We had a meeting, maybe you missed the email, because there's a thread and he responded to my thread. And I mean, I don't think that after I send him the Zoom link, then I automatically went to spam, So I was thinking, what would Miriam do? So here's that's a question. That's a question.
Ironically, I would give him the benefit of the doubt only because what if he was in the hospital with COVID? What if he was in a car accident? It's the spinning story thing. So I'm sorry, I just have this pain. Sorry, I'm like wincing here. You know, you're making an assumption that he just blew it off. And he very well might have, but you've got to give him an opportunity. If he says, oh yeah, I was in a traffic jam and I didn't have your number with me, well, then you know it's bull crap, but it could be something real and you have to give him that opportunity.
Okay, and that's also the thing that's a little suspicious for me is that this is typical for ADHDers. This type of behavior.
Okay, I get that, but one person is not the same as the next person. And whether you have ADHD or whether you wear glasses or whether you're hard of hearing or whatever your story is, everybody has an excuse for why they are the way they are. Now, if that's what he wants to use as his excuse, fine, then you're not interested. But if it's something real, then you would have blown him off and I'm guessing it's not real. That's my guess. But I think you have to give one shot. And not in a humble way, but more like, we had an appointment, more like precise. We had an appointment. I was there. I was waiting for you. I'm not sure what happened and why you weren't there, but I would like an explanation.
In that TNT section, okay? Put yourself on mute if you're not already. And let's have a little warm up.
Anna.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe call him or send him an email or
Yeah,
just give him,
email.
I'll probably just call him, huh?
No.
Email. Okay.
Sorry.
Don't call.
Just email.
Okay,
Email's
perfect.
fine.
Thank you, ma'am. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would have, by the way, for me, what I would have done was after about 5 minutes, I would have called him.
Oh.
When he didn't show, I would have called and gotten the reason at that moment in time. Rather than you're waiting and it's your time, your time is precious.
Yeah. And to be fair, I was going to tell him, can we just do it next week? Because I'm not feeling well right now.
No, but
I was pretty sick.
But you didn't. And you showed up.
I showed up.
So based on that, yeah. So like I said, you went out of your way, which makes it more annoying. But had you not been sick, you wouldn't have been quite as pissed off, like, well, how, no, really. So
yeah.
I would say one chance, yeah, but not to reschedule if it's a crappy excuse. Okay, thanks, Anna. All right, who else?
Marian, I do have a question from someone who wasn't able to make it today. If you don't mind if I ask on her behalf.
And we'll go to Tina. Go ahead.
Okay. It's a 3-part question. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to the first part, but I want to hear it in your words.
Okay.
And so she would like to know, do you plan on updating or revising your book at all?
Absolutely, 100% no. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, I knew that. Okay, so part 2. Are there any observations or changes or innovations in the coaching profession that kind of fall into the laser coaching framework or maybe are affected by that in any way, or any comments on that?
Coaching is coaching. Mm-hmm. And when I do my talk for the keynote speech, I'm going to talk about what coaching was like in 1995 versus what it's like now. And which is very different, because as far as I'm concerned, that question that you're asking is exactly the problem. Because when we learned coaching, it was what I called pure coaching. And what's happened over time, it's morphed into all sorts of iterations. And it's really lost in the translation. And I think the reason my book has become as popular as it is, and it's not a conceited thing, I'm just saying I think the reason is because I'm talking about what coaching is supposed to be. It's really simple and basic. And it's now gotten all these layers that mess people up, and the formulas and all the models and all that stuff. It screws everybody up from what I call pure coaching. And it's pure coaching that's transformational. And it's pure coaching that really helps people change their lives. You know, and it's that John Wooden quote that I'm going to use, you know, a good coach can change a game. A great coach can change a life. And that's what I'm all about. You know, let's change people's lives. And so to me, it's going back to what I put in the book.
Okay, and the third part of this question, I think, dovetails really nicely into that, but it's more about the people. So, are there any observed or reported client behaviors or reported client feedback that might prompt any additions or updates to themes or patterns like you talk about in the book, you know, that might be useful?
I have been trying ever since I came up with the themes. I have asked every group I've ever worked with, if you can think of another theme that's not there, please tell me. And so far it hasn't happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think, and I could be wrong, but I don't think anyone's had a conversation that doesn't have those themes show up. There's no such thing. I mean, it's always the same old, as far as I'm concerned. So I really do believe that I've covered all of them, but I'm open to anyone coming up with something that's not there.
And I think that ties in really nicely also, Marian, with Life's Little Lessons. And I'm not sure if everyone here knows about that. If you want to just briefly mention that and then how they could get that. Or did you say you might be thinking about publishing that next year in different formats?
I don't know when. I don't, you know, I would say that, but, you know, maybe in another life.
But it's available now.
Yeah,
let people know.
$10. Unless you take the course, then it's free. But it's yeah, it's right now there are 99 published, that are out there. I have more. They're just pithy little short stories, I want to say, about human behavior with examples that are really helpful for personal growth as well as helping clients. And some of the things from Life's Little Lessons are actually in the book when I talk about human behavior. But that's the piece, one of the main pieces that's missing from coaching now, is that they don't teach human behavior. They teach you what questions to ask and what to listen for, but they don't teach you about people. And that is very annoying. And one of the key points in my message that I'm going to be giving is that you have to work on yourself. And Life's Little Lessons is a great way to do that, because it wakes you up to all sorts of things that you haven't been aware of or you haven't thought of. And to me, it's a lot about personal growth, because if you're not growing as an individual and taking care of your own needs and learning more about who you are, you can never do a great job in coaching. So
very true.
That's my soapbox. Okay, I just have another few minutes. So Tina, did you have another question?
Yes. I have read the book twice now, and I just love the fact that there's lots of examples in there of you coaching people, and also listen to some of what you said. And then I sort of listen to the audiobook, and then I hear the client stories and I pause it, and even though I've heard it before, I can't remember what you answer. And then I think, what would I say? And I never come up with what you come up with. So then I'm thinking, this is my listening is different or my listening is not as tuned. And like, how can I work on that and shift that? Because obviously it's not about the questions, as you say all the time. It's really about the listening. And how do I hear what you hear?
I would say experience, helps. But more importantly, usually when people can't listen in the way that they need to, it's because they're in their own head, right? You get in your own way. And
Yeah.
you're so worried about coming up with a question, or I hope I'm really listening well, or I hope I get this, or all that stuff is exactly what takes away from just listening. And, if you think about being present can only happen through the five senses. There's no other way to be present. So if I say to you now, Tina, all I want you to do right from this second on now, right now, is just listen to my voice. Just listen to my words. Just listen to my tone. Just listen to what I'm saying. Okay, let me stop right there. While I was saying that, did you have any thoughts come in? Just while I was saying those few words.
No, I just staring intently at you, wanted to close my eyes so I could actually listen.
Exactly. Because you were present. That's how you need to be with the clients. Even if you close your eyes, that's fine. Unless you're on Zoom, I guess it would look weird. But but really, it's really about just being there and not worrying. You have to trust the process. You really have to trust the process. You have to trust yourself, trust your client, and trust the process.
That's what I say to my clients, ironically.
Yeah, well, hello. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we have just a few more minutes.
Yeah, and I really wanted to kind of wrap it up with you, Marian. So, your favorite question being, what would a wise person say, or at least one of your favorites, if you could impart any wisdom that you wanted to on other coaches, on us here in the room?
I think I just did. Trust the process.
Trust the process.
Yeah,
that's
trust
a good
the process and grow.
Yeah.
Hold on one second, Nikki, before I do that, because I have actually about 2 minutes. Sally, you had a question. I just want to hear the question and see if it's a long answer or not.
Okay, fair enough. My question is, I'm starting to get in a position with my clients that are, longer sessions, like, I've been with them now 8, 9, times, and the layers of the onion are really coming off. And we talked about, ICF and understanding this emotions and really just starting to let them come up with that. This is a little bit of an unknown territory for me because, again, I've had clients, being a new coach, really have just kind of stuck to the story, and we've gotten, surface level. Can you help me with any thoughts on how to really just explore this? Again, I'm staying open, I'm staying curious, giving that space for them to feel that.
Just tape your mouth. That's it. Silence. So, and that's what I'm going to leave everybody with, because I've always said in every talk I've ever given, there's never enough silence. When people listen to me coach, they can't get over how little I say. Really, it's uncanny. There is so much silence that even when I go back to listen to, something I've recorded for, a presentation or something, I'm blown away. Like, oh my God, I really stay quiet. It's unbelievable how little I say. So that to me, let them talk. And if you think they're finished, they're probably not. unless it's very clear or your question wasn't really about them, it was more about the story or something. But other than that, they're going to want to fill in that space. And that's when the juicy stuff comes.
I'm just laughing because Marianne literally did tell me that one time. You're just going to put tape on your, yes.
Yeah, that sounds like me.
I love
Anyway, I need to, I have a bridge game coming up.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, I didn't hear from you at all. And Rhonda? Zoom isn't responding. I can see and hear you, but I can't interact. Oh.
Okay, so Marianne, is there anything you want to leave as an offer? I mean, anything at all that you want to have the final say about real quick? Because I know
well, we have a very unexpected, despite my at least 50 people on the waiting list, we have an unexpected opening in the September laser coaching class. If anybody knows anybody who might be interested, it's really crazy that this has happened. And Nikki and I have been approaching, I can't tell you how many people on my list, and everyone has a different reason why they can't do it in September. They want to do it in January. So January already looks crazy, but I need one person for September. So if you know someone, please share, and send them to the life coaching group page, and the big training arrow has if you click on that big training arrow, it goes right to the information. Okay. And as we know, for many of you know, it's 3 times a week and it's intensive and it's only 12 weeks. So it has to fit into people's schedules as well. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Marianne.
Oh, my pleasure. Really, it was great to meet you.
Thank you, Marion.
And so great to
so
see
much.
those who I know. And Val, if you have more questions, just send me a message through my contact form on my website. Val. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I was just wondering if you have any more to say about the counseling versus coaching. What I heard when I was driving, and
I can't do it now. I can't do it now, Val. So
no worries at all.
Yeah, I have to get my breakfast ready. Sorry.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, have a great game.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you
Good to
again.
see you. So long.
Take
Bye-bye.
care, everyone.
Bye. Thanks, Nikki.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.